segment, we are going to welcome Susan back again. Hello,
Hi.
beautiful Susan. This is the last segment of our Motivation Summit. For those of you who might just be joining for this last half hour, I want to remind you that we are tweeting live some of the highlights of today's event with the hashtag Motivation Summit. We will have recordings of these segments, and we will also provide some slides as a help to you later. A reminder that Susan, our host today, is the author of Why Motivating People Doesn't Work and What Does. And in case you don't know me, I am Becky Robinson. I'm the founder and CEO of Weaving Influence.
And Superwoman.
Thank you. You are so kind. And apparently old, and I love the game Civilization. And if you were on our last segment with Scott Rigby, you would know what we're talking about.
And Becky, can I just say that I'm so old that I don't even know what it is?
We're going to have to introduce you to the game.
Okay. Thank you.
So we're thrilled to welcome Michael and Shavit to this next segment. Michael is a financial behaviorist. He's the head of behavioral finance for Merrill Lynch, New York City, and was selected by Investment News as a under 40 visionary. So apparently we're going to welcome some younger folks to our event today. And Shavit is the leadership development executive for Merrill Lynch Wealth Management, and she's responsible for talent strategy, leader development, organizational design, performance management, assessment design, and executive coaching. Wow.
And she's also she's a superwoman too. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
so I'm gonna leave you to interview them, and I'll be back at the end for some Q&A.
Thanks, Becky. And I wish we had Michael and Shavit on the camera because they are delightful. And let me say that the reason I was so excited to have Michael and Shavit on is that they are using the ideas that we have been talking about in terms of the research in a very practical way. And so they're using this information to meet business challenges. So either Michael or Shavit, I don't know which one of you wants to speak to this, but what made you look at motivation as a way to start looking at certain business challenges?
Yes, Susan, it's Shavit. I'll kick it off and then hand it over to Michael. We've been embarking on some massive industry changes in the organization that we're working with, the kind of external pressures from the outside, as well as really thinking about how to transform our culture and get closer to our clients. And some of the things that we were implementing, it's easy to kind of sit in the home office and think, isn't this a brilliant idea and this incredible vision? And this is what we're hearing from clients. This is what we're hearing from the board. This is what we're hearing from the industry. And it's quite another thing to really get adoption across, 25,000 people. And so one of the things that we started to look at was, why are people moving and why are people not moving? Why are they moving toward the strategy and where are people kind of saying, I'm going to wait and see? And a lot of it really, Susan, has to do with when I heard you talk back in September at the Blanchard Leadership Summit. And we had been, for the most part, really trying to teach our leaders to get connected to people and to be resonant leaders. And we talked about a lot of wonderful things as it relates to our culture, but we kept saying, you've got to motivate change, you've got to motivate change. And what we realized was that it's not motivate change that we've got to do, it's to inspire change. And we've got to do a better job of connecting with our people on what will inspire them to change and act as change agents as opposed to change drivers.
In fact, I'm sorry, Michael, I was just going to say, in fact, that whole concept of driving change and driving motivation is just, it's like an oxymoron, it's like you can't drive people to be inspired. So
yeah, and in fact, Susan, we have basically outlawed, for lack of a better word, the word drive in our organization. So as it relates to leadership, none of what we are not doing is we're not driving anything. We are all about connecting to people and understanding them and then helping them move to where they need to go with their practice and their business.
That's amazing. I'm sorry, Michael, I stepped on you. Go ahead.
Not at all. I had a big smile on my face because I'm thinking about this notion of wiping out drive from our vernacular. And to that end, when we think about our interactions with our clients and our customers, it's really wonderful because this same inspiration really aligns with how we interact with those clients and customers, because driving them to exhibit the most positive financial behaviors, that's not motivating either. And so what we need to do is find out what inspires our clients and our customers to actually get to their desired outcomes. And what we found is we really need to tap into their underlying motivations. What are their goals? What are the time horizons around those goals? What are the dollar amounts that they need? How do they want to accomplish those things in terms of the risks that they take? How do they want to collaborate with their family members? Are they motivated to do so? And all the reasons or underlying reasons behind that. And so it's really been a journey that's very much connected with how we talk to our clients and customers in those one-on-one and family interactions.
Hey, Michael, just for people who might not understand exactly what you do, I find it fascinating. Could you just explain a little bit more about what you do in your organization?
Absolutely. So Shavit and I both work at Bank of America Merrill Lynch, specifically when we're talking about this inspiration around exploring motivations. We're talking about our business where financial advisors interact with families who want to accomplish certain goals in their life, whether it's a retirement goal, an educational goal for their children, whether it's a legacy goal or giving to family members. So they're really trying to help clients and customers, when I refer to that, so help human beings, our advisors, get to where they want to go. That's the business that we're in. So it's interesting how connected that is with also an internal vision of trying to inspire those financial advisors in the right kind of way and tap into their underlying motivations about why they want to be in this business, why they want to serve those clients and the customers in the way that they do. Does that answer the question, Susan?
Yeah, beautifully. And Michael, I think what's fascinating about that is that if you've got financial advisors who, looking back at if people were involved or were watching Jacques Forrest's segment in this summit about money, if you've got financial advisors whose motivation is around reputation, ego, money, rewards, and they are trying to advise those human beings on how to invest their money or how to manage their wealth, then they're sending the wrong message. They're not going to connect. They're not going to relate. And I think this new generation is really sensitive to that. They're much more kind of socially conscious or responsible. Is that what you found? Or in your exploration, what have you found that's most surprising? What have you discovered?
So I'll let Shavit take that, but first I do want to react before we get to the most surprising findings to your thinking around a movement with, let's say, the younger generations.
Yeah.
And we completely found the same idea where there's this desire, and we even have a new white paper on this exact theme of connecting money and meaning. And it is an aha moment for many human beings, just generally speaking. So the different presentations that have alluded to those concepts or addressed them directly, it really resonated with me, and I know resonate with a lot of our clients and customers, because there's a sense in which you were supposed to divorce money and meaning a couple decades ago. It seems to be a notion that was out there that those two things were not compatible with each other. So it's really fun to see those younger generations challenge the older generations and say, well, that's absolutely by definition, which is what you're alluding to, not true. And so that collaborative dialogue, opening up those lines of communications cross-generationally, has seen a lot of really fantastic, wonderful outcomes. So with that, I'll turn it to Shavit to answer the question about the most surprising outcomes that we've seen, or the findings rather.
Thanks, Michael. So Susan, we've spent some time talking a little bit about this research, and one of the things that, so the way that Michael and I work together is that I kind of bring the leadership perspective, and Michael brings the FA and the client perspective, and we together come together to think really about learning and behavior. And so what we really wanted to try to uncover through our initial research was, what was that pivotal moment in time when people decided to go from skeptical to adopting? And when we use the word adoption, we're talking about really adopting the strategy, or adopting some of the tools, or adopting some of the ways, the activities that we're asking people to really get closer to their clients and document the conversations that they're having. And so we really
Hey,
wanted to
Shavit,
understand.
Shavit,
Yeah.
I want to interject real quick that any organization that's going through a change initiative or looking at a cultural shift, I think can really relate to what you're talking about. So I just want to make sure that people are relating not just to your example, but to their own
Absolutely.
change initiatives. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what Michael and I initially really wanted to look for was we wanted to see when people moved from skepticism to adoption and what was that moment in time, because we thought that if we could identify that moment in time, then we can replicate it and we could teach it to all of our leaders and we would all be, we would be happy. And what we found instead, which was really surprising, was that those moments in time are very unique to each individual, and that it really is, the answer was depends, and that for every single person it was deeply personal. It had to do with their work and their practice and their life and who they are as an individual. But one of the other most surprising things that we found is that when we asked our financial advisors why they do what they do, what makes for a great day, or why they keep up with this work, what they told us was that for them it was about the clients. It was about the connection with the clients, their ability to really make a difference in someone's life and to be that person that is important, that can really help someone reach their dreams or achieve their goals. And when we asked our leaders the same question, they said exactly the same thing. But the interesting thing was when we asked our leaders what they thought financial advisors said, they said money. So our leaders there was a gap in terms of how our leaders saw our client-facing associates, and in fact, what motivates them or what they find incredibly compelling or energizing or engaging is that connection with the client. And it was like these two groups never recognized that in each other because they were making so many assumptions about what was important that they didn't always take the time to stop and ask. Now, I do want to preface, Susan, that as I have, and so has Michael, been kind of going around the country talking to different groups, Michael talking to advisors and I'm talking to leaders, we get a fair amount of skepticism around that because they do believe, going back to the earlier segment, that it is all about money. But when you look at what's behind this component of money, what they talk about really is lifestyle, and that it's not necessarily the dollar amount, but that the lifestyle that they've been able to have, the ability to coach their son's baseball game or the ability to take their family on a vacation that they were never able to take when they were younger, but that the ability to connect with their clients and help their clients achieve their goals allows them to have the lifestyle that they want. And that was a big surprising moment, and we continue to dig deeper into that. Michael, what would you add? Yeah.
So from the perspective of a surprise, I completely agree with Shavit. And just to add on to that quickly, when we talk to our clients, one of the things they say to us, and I just want to go the full spectrum here, from leadership to financial advisors who are working directly with our clients to the actual clients themselves. So when we talk to clients, they say things like performance, money management. Those things are important to them, but it does require qualitative discussions, not just those quantitative, to say, well, what does that really mean, to Shavit's point? What are you really trying to accomplish with that additional money, those additional funds? And what our clients end up saying is that they too are inspired by using their money to actually help others. And namely, 91% of them say their goal is to use their money as a commitment to their family, to help their family members, whomever they may be, to get to where they want to go. So the most surprising thing to me is we have leaders, we have advisors, and we have clients who literally have the same exact motivations, Susan, which I just find really fantastic, because with that motivational alignment, there's a real synergy that can actually provide integrative solutions from within and outside the organization, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. And so, Michael and Shavit, given that, um, what is it you think that leaders should be doing differently, or what can they be doing to foster those kind of conversations? Because what it seems to me, what I hear you saying, is that everybody was thinking that what they're working for was the money, that there was an extrinsic focus to the work. You are, after all, in the financial industry. And now with all of these regulations coming in saying that because of some past history in the financial world and on Wall Street and all that, you're going to be regulated to do things differently. People might be feeling imposed about that. Um, and yet what you're saying is, if you scratch beneath the surface, they all actually have a deeper sense of meaning around why they want the money. They just didn't even know it. So what kinds of actions are you hoping to do in the organization? What are you hoping to action that maybe other people could hear and say, oh, those are some interesting ideas?
Yeah, so it's a great question. We're doing several things. A lot of it really has to do with connecting with our leaders and sharing what we found and having conversations around it. But the other thing that we've put in place is we've created very similar to how we ask our advisors to talk to our clients, which is called a goals-based discussion, meaning starting from really understanding your client's goals in order to be able to really provide valuable advice as a financial professional. We have taken a coaching model and we've created what we're calling a goals-based coaching discussion. And we've really gone around the country talking to every single leader that touches all of our financial advisors and have really talked about relatedness and competence and autonomy, as well as really making a connection through having a goals-based conversation, meaning that you can't assume that you know or understand what is the motivation of the person that needs to change some of the things that they're doing in order to be more aligned with where the industry is going and to be more, for lack of a better word, compliant. And so for us, as we continue to measure our activities, we know that coaching and these one-on-one or team-on-team conversations are really going to be essential to people getting connected and understanding what the strategy is. A lot of times we mistake issues of issues of skill for issues of will. And so we've been spending a lot of time with our leaders, helping them learn how to ask the right questions, have a framework to have those discussions. But in the end, it's about getting more connected and understanding the intrinsic motivator of the person who is across from you, so that when you make that connection, you can help them move from point A to point B or even to point C, and you do it together.
You know, Shavit, I love that. The one thing I would add is that it's not just the intrinsic motivation that's being discovered. It's that integrated, that identified. It's the value space. Because again, some people just love that kind of work. But I know that there's some people who've been in your industry for many, many years, and things are changing so much, and they're going, I don't even know if I like the way we're going to be doing business anymore. So they might not love the new changes, but they can always find value and purpose behind what they're doing and the way they're doing it. And those the conversations.
Yeah, and you know what, Susan, what I would say is more often than not, while people, and change is a constant. So that's another kind of component of the culture work that we've done across the organization, that just getting people used to the idea of change, and that, when people who've been doing a similar job for a long time might look back on their career and say, it's been the same, I've never had to do anything differently. And we know, in fact, that that's not true, and there have always been significant changes. But what we've found really, when we get deeper into the conversations, is that people they're more afraid of the change and don't know how they might be able to manage and adjust themselves or the way in which they work to that change. And so that fear or that anxiety manifests itself in what might be viewed as complacency or skepticism or lack of engagement. And what we're trying to do is help our leaders break through some of those walls so that they can say, you know what, let me take you step by step through this. And Michael and his team have been instrumental in really creating processes that are simple to use and ways that people can relate to some of the activities that they do in a way that is not so overwhelming and feels like I've got to learn all new technology just to stay in the game.
Yeah, and Michael, I want to hear a little bit more about that. Let me just make a connection between what you just said, Shavit, and what our research has shown is that people go through definite stages when there's a change initiative, and there's defined stages. And so this first stage is the information stage, where the organization shares information about what the changes are happening. But then usually what happens is organizations then jump from here's the information about it to try to sell it, and here's how we're going to implement it, and here's all our strategies for implementing it. And what they've skipped is the second all-important stage, which is personal concerns. As soon as you've told me we're changing and giving me some information, what happens is I start wondering, what does that mean for me? How is that going to affect me personally? And so what I hear you talking about is a strategy that you're doing organizationally to get at people's personal concerns about what changes are happening. And people are afraid they're losing their autonomy. They don't have their same sense of meaning, or they're afraid of the relationships, and they're not sure they have the competence to deal with the new reality. So those conversations about autonomy, relatedness, and competence are absolutely essential. So I'm really excited about your people having those conversations. Michael, is there something you'd like to add about what you're doing or how you're feeling about your change process at Merrill?
So just to translate that from something internal to something external for everyone on this webcast to relate to. So if you think about just ourselves as human beings who, let's say, are investors, so we're in the markets. And to your point, Susan, there have been a lot of changes in terms of the financial markets, and for individual investors, investment performance. The idea, is investing predictable? Is it not? What does investment performance look like? Volatility. So that gets into this idea of change. And so when you think about prescribing an approach to get at the values people have, their concerns, to actually then create a productive path to aligning motivations to what they're trying to accomplish and the change that's required, I'd like to encourage everyone to think about the following 3 questions, which we've been coaching advisors to actually talk about with their clients to get them in that mindset and then turn it internally to their team. So the first question is, what is the primary intent for your money, for your wealth? What's the primary intent that you have for it? And typically people talk about things like their lifestyle, as Shavit mentioned, commitment to their family, trying to accomplish some sort of personally meaningful goal or address a concern. So maybe it's supporting an aging parent, making sure their spouse or partner actually has enough after they pass. So those are the kinds of things that you get out of that primary intent. So now it's very clear that money is a tool. It's not a means to an end. Then we ask the advisor to ask the client, do you have just enough, more than enough, or not enough to achieve that intent? And I think that's where we get a lot of the confounds with those extrinsic and intrinsic motives and what are the values and all those kinds of things. So we try to disentangle that. So if someone says they don't,
say again, do you have just enough, more than enough, and what was the third?
Or not enough to achieve that intent. Okay. And so as you can imagine, your answer to that may lead you to a certain set of behaviors that have gone unarticulated, or fears or concerns. And that may have created inertia or overaction in certain areas that isn't really translating into actually something aligned with your motives and your desired outcomes. The last question we ask is, who do you want to share this information with? And Susan, I think that's almost the most important one, and especially when we look internally, because having collaborators, as you well know, people who support you in a non-judgmental way and are there to help you create that values, motivation, outcome alignment, it's just so critical to being successful in a sustainable way. So that's all I'll add to that.
Wow. And Michael, as the head of research, or what is your role? I mean, what's your title again?
So I'm the head of behavioral finance and goals-based consulting. And what that essentially means is we try to connect what's been traditionally quantitative, and so very money-based, let's say, and connect that to what's actually human. So turning finance into what we call behavioral finance.
I hope everybody's excited about the fact that we've got major financial institutions in this country who actually have a behavioral psychologist on staff making those links. And then you got people like Shavit who are helping to put that in action through leadership. Anyway, Becky's popped up on the screen, which is always an indicator of something.
Yes, I think that we are going to share some more information about ways folks can learn more about Michael and Shavit. Kayla, if we want to skip to that next slide. So Michael has multiple articles on this topic, and we will provide this in our follow-up email as well so that you can learn more about what Michael and Shavit are doing. So thank you
And
so
some of
much,
those,
Michael and
some of
Shavit,
those,
for joining us.
I'm sorry, some of those are available on the Merrill Lynch website too, I think, Michael?
Correct. So any of
Yeah.
these links will go to public-facing websites with this research. So our philosophy is to share all of our insights in terms of connecting meaning and money with just human beings in general, because we feel that's empowering.
Thank
Great.
you so
Thank you both.
much for your generosity in sharing those articles. And obviously, if you're looking at the screen, you're not going to be able to click those links, but we'll make sure that you have them after the event.
Thank you, Shavit. Thank you, Michael.
I want to encourage
Thank
everyone to stay on the line. I have something really exciting to share with you as we move to the next slide. So Susan, this has been the most tremendous hour, and I am exceedingly impressed with the way that you put together such a thoughtful and well-organized group of experts to give so much valuable information to us today. As a thank you to our attendees who have stayed on until the end, I do have 5 copies of Susan's best-selling book in my office, Why Motivating People Doesn't Work and What Does. If you'd like to send me an email, becky@weavinginfluence.com, and share some insightful feedback, positive, negative, ways we can improve, what you enjoyed the most, what you learned, how you're going to put these ideas into action, send an email to me, becky@weavinginfluence.com, and we'll randomly select 5 of you to receive Susan's book.
Thank
You
you,
can learn
Becky.
Oh, my pleasure. You can learn more about Susan at her blog, susanfowler.com. You can follow her on Twitter. There's also a SoundView webinar that she did with some introductory information and ideas about her work, and we will share that link with you after the call. And also you can check out 3 books from Susan, including her bestseller, the one I'm giving away. Also, Self-Leadership in the 1-Minute Manager and Achieve Leadership Genius. Susan, I understand that you have a few wrap-up comments for us as we wrap up this amazing
Yeah.
2 hours together.
You know, I'm feeling very humbled and privileged to have had the people we had on today. And what I'd love for you all to do as you're leaving, if you would just put something in the chat box in terms of what other questions might you have had, or what other topics of interest. I would really love to have more of these motivation summits, because there are amazing people doing amazing research and then applying it in workplaces today, and in their homes and with their families and for themselves. And so I think it's our job to get you the best and the latest research so you can make good choices for the way you're running your organizations and your own life. So Becky, thank you. You've been a phenomenal, so has your team, and this has been one of the best mornings of my life. Thank you so much, everyone.
Sure. So I would normally cut this webinar off immediately when we're done, but Susan, since you've asked people to give extra questions in the question panel, I'm just going to leave it open for a minute. We're going to stop recording, but we'll